Alrighty, I think that brings us to the virtual tour portion of the class today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to begin these things off. If I could get Marcus up here first so that he could narrate his portion of the I think we'll be able to see better this way.
Not too bad.
I didn't know when Bob came that he was going to take all these kind of pictures. But this is the front of my house as you drive up the driveway, and if I'd have had the picture, I could have saved $1,000 and not bought the house. But anyway, that's coming up my driveway. That's the house, and actually it's my back of the house, and kind of facing the pond.
So again, Rick?
I'm sorry, should I video him or that?
I know
Either
how-
one. You can switch back and forth.
Can you go full screen?
Say again?
Is it better if you go full screen?
I thought I was full screen. You're right. I don't.
Okay, if I see that,
Good.
do we need to turn the lights off?
Turn the lights on.
Let's turn the lights off. We don't need to record this then if it's
Okay.
pretty much better.
I saw that picture on my computer and I thought, now that's a workshop.
No, this is kind of a preview of things to come. That's why I included those two in there.
I promise you, if I'd have learned how to scroll saw and met Hans and George early, I'd have been financial off better. But we'll find out. This was a one-car garage when I moved there, and I moved it out from being a garage to filling up the basement with dust, so I made it into a workshop. These are just some cabinets I bought very reasonable and just made a row on each side of my shop. And on the left-hand side is the duct system, whatever I want vacuumed up. And this is just the cheapest table saw. And
Oops, went too far, too fast there.
that's just a thing I made the other day. I was hoping the young boy that would come, I was going to show him and emphasize the safety when we use tools. If you're into intarsia and all, please buy you a drum sander because you just can't hardly get by without one of those. And the little white box is my hold down that when I'm sanding inside parts. Same thing there with my duct system on the right that goes to different pieces of thing. I bought the duct sanding machine here, but they are not quite.
Yeah, to solve the quiet problem there, Marcus stuck the machine outside, poked a hole through the wall.
Don't go down to the Ace Hardware and spend $23 for a 4-inch round hole saw, because as soon as you hit that hardy plank that's made out of cement, you lose $23.75.
What'd you end up using?
Screwdriver. In fact, if you would just mark it off and take a sharp point screwdriver and work around, the electrical plugs fit in there very well. And then some magnetic racks that I bought here and just stick stuff on. I'm not a dentist, so you see those little prongs. Just table to hold. Start a project, never finish, like that rooster that I don't know how long I've been on it. And keep jumping, as George mentioned earlier, you get other projects, and that's what happens. That's going to be a roof. I like old cars, so I cut out cars and make them look as original as I can. I can buy a pattern. I like 40 Fords. I was born in 40, and that's a 40 Ford coupe there.
Deluxe or standard?
That's a deluxe. When you look at the grill,
Okay.
well, it's got a thing, a standard is a solid grill.
I don't understand that late model stuff. I'm in the AA model era.
Oh, there's more to come on the cars later.
Wow.
That's just some things inside my shop that I try to keep up with George, and damn, he's killing me.
I've only been doing it 20 years. He's been doing it 1 year. Look at his collection.
And I just, I'm a copycat. If he makes something, I think I ought to make half of it, so that's what it is. But it is enjoyable, it's better than a divorce.
Oh, look at the puppy hanging over the shoulder.
That's just some more stuff. Record, we had a class here one Saturday, make things other than wood, to make a record. So I did not make Nashville, so. That's some stuff that's made out of chlorine, tile, different things, tributes. That's a snake that I get out of a vine and carve it down and burn it and spend a lot of time. Just more frames of fretwork. Go nuts drilling, screwing out the little hole.
Okay, and just we'll try this here and see if
Yeah,
this
we
actually
don't.
works here.
Now, I haven't seen some of this, so we'll see that we have.
I can see I'm missing sound already.
Ain't I good looking?
Sound good too.
You're pretty quiet though.
Okay, you may have to narrate that thing, so I can.
Well, that's just when you first started, is just telling them about the tubes and kind of in a row. I'm not a very well organized person. I was born in 1940 and we didn't throw nothing away, and if you see, I still got it. Later you'll see more.
Hang on just a second here. Let me see if I can solve the sound problem here.
You know, he does the same thing in my house. Every time I turn on my computer, I gotta go to the other room to listen to it.
Tile, and it's worked out very well for me. And then I keep the saws that don't dust. I have a dust collector that I put on the outside, and I put all my saws and cinders that I have just on one side of the dust collector. Miter saw, my little bench sander, my dust collector hooks up to my planer and to the table saw and to the drum sander thing, which is very, very necessary to have when improving with cutting in tarsia. And then on the right, the other side is I have my scroll saw with a light, and I can have use the bench as my table as I cut, and just lay out my pieces of the pattern that I'm making. And it's worked well. And I save my drops of wood. I ain't as conservative on saving my drops as Hans is, but then I use them for pieces to make up patterns of different woods. And as you can see on the wall, whatever George does, I try to copy it. He's got a lot of this on this back porch, so I just put mine. I wasn't allowed to put them all in the house, so I just put them out here in the shop, and this worked out great for me. I call this my little museum wall, but it's done great. And some of my patterns aren't related to animals, so to speak, but I like old cars, so I have one end there with some patterns of different models of cars, and I cut them out. And I especially love 44s. And, I wished I had learned the woodwork earlier. I could have been much more well off to stay with wood than I would with cars. But we learned. Someone else. Long time ago, you could buy Cokes in a much bigger liter bottle.
We are in the outside of my big shop now, away from the
Like
wood.
that is antique now because they don't make them, but many years ago they made like a quart size Coca-Cola. And I just saved a Sprite and a Coke bottle and put them up there. And this right here is a old cheese box. Out in the country stores a long time ago they sold hoop cheese, which is very good cheese. And that's what hoop cheese came in. And
People over 50 know what hoop cheese is.
You got a cutter?
metal.
No, a piece of wire goes.
Drinks in. This one happens to be a 7.
Drinks used to come in metal cartons, which is collector's items now, especially if it's some Coca-Cola. Their products go
Top of
up.
that is a little old-timey scrub board.
That's the reason your grandmother's always hunt back
Small
down with a scrub board.
towels, some small
If you
piece.
younger than 50, you don't know what that is.
Clean. And naturally, up top is a bracing bit. To the right of it is a
That's a
axe that is
cut shingle,
made to
like
cut
cycle shingles, cedar shingles for
wooden
roofs.
like
And pull
cypress
it
or
and
cedar
cut the blocks
with the
off.
zip around. Below that is a set of ice tones where that ice man used to go around the houses and leave a nickel, a 10, a 15-cent piece of block of ice, and he had access to just walk in the house and put it in an old-timey refrigerator. To the bottom of that is a vulcanizer stand there.
Remember when you used to patch your tubes and go to a place and sand the tube and then burn it a little, put it around
Nail
the
holes
things
in
up.
a tire, you
Sand
just
that little kit over there came with a piece
scrape it,
of like
burn it off.
perforated metal, sand and put your glue on it and burn it. The whole patch.
Process of putting on.
You keep one of those in your V8 toolbox?
You call it AAA.
Set of scales out in the field, and that is called a peak on the right-hand side. And the farmers didn't want to pay nothing for the poor people to pick the cotton, so they would cheat them because they knew the people that was picking the cotton would put rock or water or anything on the cotton to make it weigh more. So the farmer would drill out that peak in the bottom and add extra weight in it, and it would counteract the scale from being accurate. From 100 pound, it may be 90 pound or something like that. And to the right of that is a Coca-Cola where people used to make their own little drinks. They would call them soda pops in the South or what have you. that's a cork, or we put the cap, snap the cap right on the top of the bottom. Down below it is where you used to buy buck oil in a quart jar, which is a collector's thing today. They even had that in a wire wrap like they do the coats. To the right of that is a wheat blade sling. They curved, and they would cut wheat, grab a hold of it, and cut it as you walked out in the field. And then a turning boat, which a logger would use to turn logs in a sawmill when they were cutting slabs. And then an old kind of hat rack that you put your hat on to make it feel and keep the shape. And then up tight was those single tree that the mule would have and pull the plow, wagon, or whatever they may have. And then you had a collar, which I don't have a collar up there, but then they had that thing on the right was a teenager attention, which has happened to be a straight edge razor blade strike that the barber would use in the barber shop, but Dad used them for other things. Below that is a 60 horsepower flathead engine with a push rod, inverted caps for different parts of the car, and then it's got some pistons with the rings. Those different kind have rod bearings in them. The Model A's had like batteries where they would barely pour the bearings.
Battery.
To the right of it is
This is the first
a
Ford
airplane that I made for my
engine.
grandson.
29.
It's metal and wood, and it's
32.
That was
steering.
Model A from a Model B.
It's a
One of the
tricycle. I
AFP,
bent all the
32.
rods,
32 is a bit.
pedal it like a pedal. And then,
I made that,
down
as a,
on the bottom
as
there,
a
by
raptor, as a
charcoal
Stearman
bag.
plane.
Do you have that?
That was an old refrigerator, house bought. Boy, ain't them pretty legs.
That was a bird walk in
That's,
there.
That way we don't have crews.
ice box.
You gonna see junk in
Is that a hand brake?
There'd be a box of
a
ice.
handbook.
Pan, or hand, either.
That's a box of hand right
Many
there.
homes in the country did not have that.
That's a 4 foot.
In the 40s or 50s.
That's a collector's item, those street lights,
Collectibles.
that's a metal one. Today's they made out of plastic.
Today,
Does
plastic.
someone know why the red light is always at the top of the signal light? Everybody know?
For colorblind people.
The people that are colorblind, they'll know, always to know that the red light is at the top.
Red and green colorblindness is common.
Always on the top. Red, amber, orange, and then green. That has really helped out people that are colorblind.
In the early years, that tag there's a matching number. The front and the back has matching tags. Today, those are collector's items, so. That's a 40 Ford pickup, now that's the standard grill that he was talking about earlier. All pickups were standard.
But today, even these tags that when you can find a matching tag, the front and the back, especially on a car, they cost about like $400 to get a matching tag. And the cars in the 40s was the first year that they had seal beams, and they also have hydraulic brakes. Before that, they came out with mechanical brakes. Hydraulic is what we have today. The motor was a flathead water tube with all with internal valves. There's no overhead valves on these. And 85 horsepower, and they was known to run real good, around 100 mile an hour if you could hold it, but so many of the roads were dirt or halfway paved and you couldn't drive them very fast. The truck itself only came in a deluxe model, where the cars had standard and deluxe. Pickup was only a standard. The grill makes the difference and other things. And as it goes, and if you can pick it up and hear the sound.
Now look at his legs, y'all didn't say nothing.
My seatbelt went on the door.
For the old timers, they really love to hear them. They did more. So many of us modified them a little bit because they first come out with a 6-volt system, which we put a converter in it to use 12-volt cranking. That makes it crank so much better, especially when the motors get wore out. They don't have no compression. Those 6-volt batteries will not last long. But now, a flathead motor was known to get warm in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the day's highway.
Cars standard kits.
That happens to be a tube kit that came with a vehicle when you purchased it. They had a Durana sack. Some people call it a crook sack with a forwarding signal on it. The tubes he had made, had forward stamped on them. And today, when you go to these car shows for early V8 they judge it. One of the things is you have to have a tube kit.
Middle of it.
The screwdrivers are made a certain way, and they look at that. Gives you a reference book, the operating manual, and the tools today you can buy. The truck itself sold for about $600, or maybe a little less. But the tool kit today costs about $300. You can get the whole complete set. Maybe a little less.
That paint job wasn't a
And
1940
the inside,
repaint.
the pickups came with the gear shift and the floorboard. The cars came with the gear shift on the column. Was the first year that they had there. They had a little vent on the outside that you push to make the air
49 was in the
condition.
floorboard.
They had a
Just
automatic
on the truck?
throttle
Truck
cruise
only
controls. We call it a throttle cable that you pull out, and it even had a tripometer, or whatever the word
The
is,
tree was
on the
49.50.
speedometer that would give you your mileage, or how far you went, even in 1940.
That's a 40 coupe deluxe. I hit a mud puddle driving that one. I don't get upset.
Deluxe.
I just like to
Business
ride in
coupe.
it.
They came out with an opera coupe and a business coupe. The salesman would use a business coupe because the trunk would hold so much. And this particular car I've had, the motor's been beat up a little bit. It runs real good, and but it's the whole car didn't cost but $600 and something brand new. I don't know, I ain't gonna say how much I paid for the tires, probably a third of
After
what the
listening
car
to this
cost.
thing in person, I'm convinced that this thing was used to run moonshine.
Well, they have it every October in Dawsonville. You'll see more 44s there in Dawsonville in October than you will anytime
Do
in
different things to them.
anytime in this state.
You do the body work?
shield there.
I do little, but not,
We put that there to, make that air go
but
to the
not, no,
radiator.
I'm not a painter.
Help it cool, cause these flat heads.
You'll learn to tinker with them to keep them running,
More.
because they're gonna stop on, vapor lock. So,
And it's like we
Close
mentioned
pin on
earlier,
the
the cars
gas line,
came out with the
anything to
gear
cool it
shift
off.
on the column,
now you
which
use
was the
electric
first
fuel.
year. Ford done that, and also the seal beams and the hydraulic brakes compared to.
I don't see you driving this thing in here on the Saturdays.
Yeah, I won't get here. I will, excuse me. I like to show off trying to make them crank, because I 12-volted this and it cranks very good. Then you have to change that there has a generator on it, and you can change it.
You changed it from a 6 to a 12 then?
The battery.
Yeah.
And you have to put natural power reducer on it, as you know in electronics. But I'm happy to enjoy my cars. I have 444, so thank you.
Okay, in the interest of time here, we'll move along next to Ed Sullivan. Yeah, figured out how to.
Yeah, you gonna put your car up there?
Yeah.
You gonna put your car up there too?
Well, I'm putting that up there for you all that go back a little beyond the 1940, because the 1940 was my first car that I owned. I paid $100 for it. I didn't think I would ever get that thing paid off. And it had a mind of its own every time I headed toward Red Oak, which I lived in Corning, which is 28 miles away. College was that way, Red Oak was that way. There was a little girl that lived in Red Oak that, boy, I was really smitten, and I wanted to go that way. That doggone car, every time I headed toward Red Oak, would quit about half of the way there. I had to get out and work on it. Of course, that made me late, and so I didn't even go. I never did have a date with a girl. That's okay. And one other thing along that car line, we had a Model B during the war. I don't know whether you're familiar with some of the characteristics during that time. Things were really rational. You could not get the inserts in the for the rods on rebuilding the car. So my brother and I would have been about 9, my brother would have been about 13. We got to the point where we could drop the pan on that car, on that Model B, drop the pan, put in new inserts. And by the way, the inserts were not lead or Babbitt like they were supposed to be, because we couldn't get it. And we had the tug on a horse's harness was the perfect width, and you cut it to length, put it in there, and turn the crankshaft so you could get it around, put it in. If we had to plow mud roads, you could get about pretty close to a week out of it. If we didn't have to plow the mud, 2.5 miles of mud, we could get about 2 weeks out of them. And we got to the point where we could drop that pan, put the new bearings in, leather bearings, and we were ready to go again in probably 30 minutes. We got pretty good at it. Okay, this is, I got a hold of some, what they tell me was bowling alley lanes, and this is 1.5 inches, about 1.5 inches by 10 foot long, and 12 inches wide. If you go on to the next one, please. And this is the present bench I have. I'm going to take this off and put that on and cut a tool, make a rack, table out of this, cut a tool spot like these out here have for the resting of the tools so they won't roll off. It's going to be a pretty good size, and if anybody has some suggestions, I'm trying to debate now whether to make it 24 inches wide or 36 inches wide. I can do either one, and 'cause I have enough of them, so, okay.
Where did you get the bowling alley material?
Strange. The gentleman across the street died. Nobody knew, he was a recluse, didn't talk to no one. And one day the sheriff came out and started taking everything out of his house and putting it in the front yard. And the neighbors said, "What's going on?" And they said, "He's been evicted, his son refuses to pay the house payments, everything has to go. Anybody wants it, take it." And I looked at those black board and I said, "Whoa, that's something I could use." So I got about 5 of them. This is a turnaround that, first of all, let me give credit to where this come from. My friend Larry Schubach made one of them, and it's on casters, and it does spins, and I varied the distance of those so I can keep putting stuff in those varying heights. On the side I got my dust mask, my hearing, and my shield, and over here is my glue. One side pretty much handles my glue stuff, this handles my documentation stuff, and the 4 sides I can just turn it around. It spins pretty easy, and I can get to most everything pretty quickly. Now, there's another side of this basement is the same size that I have. Only problem is I've only been married 54 years, and for happy home insurance premiums are much cheaper if I allow her to have that half and she allows me to have this half. And so that's the reason that I don't go through that door with much of the woodworking stuff.
Yeah, as an editorial aside, I was most impressed with this cabinet here is good utilization of the cubage. You know, when you run out of square footage, you start going up.
And I started to make that darn thing higher. Only problem was there's a beam, and I almost done that. There's a beam that supports the floor, and I thought, whoa, wait a minute, if I make that thing a little bit higher, I can't take it from here underneath that beam. I could have made it another 10 inches higher. Northern Tool, I believe, or Harbor Freight, one or the other, had these on sale. My problem was I done scale work, I done electrical work, concrete work, fence work, just like everybody does. And there's a slight problem. Where do you keep all this stuff now that you don't do it anymore? But gosh, I can't get rid of it, obviously. And so I got this, and it pretty well organizes most of my screws and bolts and stuff like that. It handles most of it. Costco had this and that, both of these on, not on sale, and I bought them there. This handles most all my tools and hand tools over on this side. This is the top of it, and Jerry, there's your mortising. In a few minutes I'll show you I'm in the need of a mortising tool, and Jerry Jones let me borrow his. Okay. I'm in the process of, after 54 years of marriage, I'm in the process of living up to one of the things that I told my wife many years ago that I would do. Build her a 4-poster bed. Well, time has come. So I started with this, and you got 30-inch pieces. Well, the lathe will handle that. Only is this tall then, about 60 inches, right? There's a problem. That's not high enough. I put them together and I said, "Is this okay? Do you like this?" She said, "Oh, that's not tall enough. I like it more." So now what what do? So with that, I had to make a spool piece that went between the two pieces of about a foot, so that it goes up now the full amount she wants. If you ever do these, one of the things that I missed was I was trying to make them exactly alike. That's impossible. Not only is it impossible, it's mind-boggling. It drives you crazy. I made 4 of the bottoms, and out of the 4 bottoms, I said none of those, I screwed them up, they simply put, I screwed them up, so I made tops out of the bottoms because I could recover from it. So if you ever try to do this, don't try to make them, get them as close as you can, but don't try to do that. Now, to put these together, again, Larry suggested something that I had not thought of. I was just going to put the tendon and mortise together. He said put a screw in it together that holds it in. You can take it apart, but still. And so I have now, and that works much, much better. This is the headboard. This is my table saw. I didn't have enough space to cut all these the long boards. I moved my saw out that way, out this way, raise this up. Here's my legs for it, support it, and then that gives me enough distance to. Can you go back to that one? I'm
Yep.
sorry. This was an old drawing table that we had when I worked for Lockwood Green Engineers, and they were getting rid of them, so I brought it home and almost threw it out 3 or 4 times, and finally said, hey, I can use that for this. So I put a piano hinge across here, and that can raise up. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, one more time. Back
Oh,
there.
okay.
To get so that I could take a longer board and do a cross cut, these fit. I put a board across here, and I cut a groove in this board, and then the one down underneath here can come out, and it also has legs, and it sets right on that, down in that groove, and so that I can use my sled to cut a long board crossways. Thank you. I want everybody to see this. My safeguard, my blade guard is on the saw. That is, we won't go there.
As I recall, you said that was the only time in this millennium?
I have not had an opportunity to get it off of there yet.
First time in 20 years.
That was, my son-in-law is a safety engineer, and I told him I would not show anything that was going to get him in trouble. Okay, this is a little side piece that I put on the saw. This is the regular old Sears saw. All I done was put a board down here and a board down here. Again, this is the piece that I would have come out with a longer board to be able to cross cut. And this gives me storage space for the fence and other things that I have. And I put hardware cloth in the bottom so it doesn't collect dust. This came from George. This is one that you give away, or I don't remember if it was one or whatever. And that was such a great idea. I made some more of them. They hold my screwdrivers, my pencils, my golf tee, all sorts of little things that I need.
The golf tee is used for what now?
Golf. That's a long golf tee, and it's just for inspiration.
Hearing protection.
Okay, This is my lathe, picture sort of high up looking more down on it. I built this to hold my lathe tools. It has a strip across here so they don't fall out the front. But if you put a little raised board back here, it keeps them a little tip forward so that even vibration keeps them solidly against the nose of the hand, and they're not going to fall off, and they're readily accessible.
What kind of lathe?
The Sears bought years and years ago. I don't know when. Oh Lord, 30 years? No, it's more than that. I've been out of the Air Force over there. Probably 40 years ago. I took a yardstick and glued it to the frame down here, and the reason for that yardstick is I can take a calipers. Excuse me, I got vertigo. Okay. Okay. If you have never had vertigo, it can get challenging. Okay, and I take calipers and get, not precise, but get a close approximation. Now if I want to be precise, I will get out of calipers to do that, but otherwise. This is my thickness planer, RBI. I'm going to have a question in a minute about this because I have the planer and then I have a sander that goes on there. Okay. This is the question. There's a hook and eye hold assembly for the sandpaper. Well, over the years, the hook, which is on the glued to the drum, has got hard and came off. I have tried everywhere to find some of that material, and I have not been able to.
McMaster car.
Let me get with you afterwards. When you're 77, your memory may not remember that was what?
McMaster car. Well, that's okay with you old guys. I'm a year younger than you.
Oh, you young guys. What is this? Does anyone know what that is? A what? It's a solid steel ball, heavy as heck. That is, I worked for Toledo Scale Systems, for a systems engineer for a number of years. That is the pivot point. There's 3 of them under a truck scale on a Fairbanks truck scale. And those are not fun if they fall on your foot. But I keep it around just for memory's sake.
I was thinking that was one of those cannonballs from when you guys were in the, Civil War. You seen
and this is just another one. Now, here's my dust collection system. As you can see, I have plastic. One of the things that we have a real problem with is static electricity when you're running dust through a plastic system, or air through a plastic system. I had no problem with it at all. I had it grounded all the way through. And one day, I had made little changes on the piping and didn't think anything about it. And I went to pull it off and whap! Boy, it zapped me. I said, what in the heck? And so I turned it back on, whap! Got me again. And what had happened, one of my grounding straps that I had on coming from the plastic tube to the metal tube had come off, and the plastic tube built up a pretty good charge. Now, would that cause a spark? Yeah, it could. May get away with it all the time. What's going to be the danger part there is if it hits at the time that the combustion of the right mixture of the air and the combustible material. So if you have that, make sure that if you use that plastic, make sure you ground it. Okay, this is the router table. I built a box underneath it. That's a sliding door so I can get into it. And on the back side, this just goes down to and this whole area is then a vacuum. Bob gave a good suggestion, drill a little hole down here in the bottom so that, because I get air that is not moving in certain places, and drill a little hole there so I get air movement will work. Again, the same thing. Router bits, routers have scared the fool out of me for years. They've just, and so I'm still hesitant about it. This is what my shop used to look like, still does in that part of it, but lots of little parts, lots of little stuff that I am going to clean it up one of these days.
Me too. Yeah.
This is my joiner, and what can you say about a joiner? Does good.
Didn't I see a larger joiner in the background earlier?
I'm sorry?
Didn't I see a larger joiner in the background?
No,
or something?
I just have the one joiner.
Okay.
This was again, my friend Larry made some things to, Larry's an excellent metal worker, and as well as woodworker, but he made these to keep my tools sharpened and give me the right angle and set them, and they do an excellent job of doing that. Again, another one, I run the gouger through that, lock it down, and then grinds it at the right angle. Boy, if it hadn't been for that, I'd still be trying to sharpen. I built this, again, this was out, but I believe out of one of the wood magazines. I modified it a fair amount, made it a little bigger, but it has 3 wings to it, and it holds all my clamps. And right beside it is my fire extinguisher, just in case.
And then another one on the wall.
My drill press, and again, I built the table and works good. So tell you this again, I got that at Costco, and store all my sandpaper, my saw blades and everything in there.
Okay. Okay, next up will be Tom.
I don't have any good car stories. I feel like I'm out of place without the car.
You got enough other hobbies to qualify.
Yeah, I actually have quite a few hobbies. I'm a private pilot, so I fly, and I love fishing and woodworking. I have too many hobbies, way too many hobbies.
Got the requisite boat in the yard.
Yeah. Okay, so my shop here starts with this clamping system, this Echo Clamp system. It's really, really good stuff. Highly recommend. I do a lot of before I got this wall-mounted unit, I actually used these little individual packs that basically it's sold a plastic piece, and then you create your own board. And it allows you basically pressure on all 4 sides of your clamping unit at the same time. And if you do a lot of clamp ups, it really, really pays for itself really quickly, because it keeps the boards all flat. When you take it out of the clamping system, you require very little leveling, very little scraping to be able to get those glue joints nice and smooth. So really good investment there. This is just some of the clamps in the shop. I've got clamps all over the place. I like to have them all in one place, but it was one of those things that clamps have just kind of grown with time, right? I mean, it's just you start off with one set, then you buy more, and you buy more, and buy more. You can never have too many clamps, I think, is the adage for woodworkers. So I've got my thickness planer here on a mobile stand. I've got a pretty large shop, a lot of open space, but still have a lot of tools on wheels, and I think it still makes sense. I do a lot of large items. I make a lot of beds and things, and so you really need that open space for some of those items. So having the tools on wheels, having them mobile, still makes a lot of sense. I don't use the thickness planer that much, but when I do, I like it out in the open, I like it out in the middle, be able to put run the boards through. So so this is just one example. There's my newest tool. I'm brand new to turning, and this year's woodworking show, I picked up this this Delta lathe. So just getting started with that.
You just lost George, he's leaving now.
Are you gonna do your turning right in front of that window there?
Well, let me tell you, take it back. So Jack has been my mentor, just since I've gotten started, and he was telling me, I was over at his shop and I was asking him to teach me a little bit about bowl turning. And so he was telling me whenever I was at his place that you have to be really careful with bowls because they tend to cut loose. And so I was explaining to him that, you know, how I have mine located, and I like it right there because of the light. And it gives me a lot of good light right there on the subject. And he said, you got to really watch that because one of these days you're going to have a bowl turn cut loose on you, and it's going to go right through that window.
Look beside of you, sir. Look over the wall. There you
Oh, this, yeah, that's exactly. I saw this whenever I came in today. I said, this is exactly what I need if I'm going to keep it there. So, so anyway, long story short, it was 2 days after I had been talking to Jack about this, and I had this set up, and he had told me, he said, don't keep, if anything else, just drag it away from that window a little bit because you're gonna be buying a new window. That's absolutely going to happen. 2 days later, I've got a bowl in there, and I'm turning it, and it busts loose. And it actually came up and actually flew up and hit the top part of the window, but it wasn't as close as it is now. I actually had it pulled back about 4 feet. So had it been where it is right now, yeah, it would have gone right through that window. So it was a good lesson. It was a very good lesson.
I told him about the explosion shield you had on your window, Rob.
Yeah. Okay, so here I've got 2 router tables. I do a lot of cabinet work, so routers are an everyday occurrence with me. So having 2 different router tables is nice because if I'm doing rails and stiles, I can actually keep 1 bit in each one. I don't have to go in and change bits a lot. So this is my most recent one, is Craig Jig. There's my scroll saw. I've got set up on an old router table. That was an old Sears router table that I had from 25 years ago or so, and I didn't need it for that anymore, and I got the scroll saw and it was like the perfect height, so I just stuck it right up there, and it works out real well for me.
Yeah, you just redeemed yourself with George there.
You're back in now.
I'm back in, George? Oh, that's good.
Stuck around a lot,
That's
just
good.
long enough.
I work in a lot of different hardwoods, a lot of different species, and you can never throw wood away, right? I mean, it's like a big no-no to throw anything away. So I found myself not being able to find the kind of wood that I wanted in the cutoffs that I needed for some of the projects that I had. So I built this mobile rig here, and I've got the dividers in it. So literally I've got a space for oak and maple and cherry and mahogany and basically just the different categories. So whenever I do have cutoffs, I can basically just throw them into those bins and be able to find them easily enough. And then I've got these lower areas down in here for jigs and whatnot, jigs and templates that I have that I use in different projects. And this is in the back corner. It's kind of hard to tell with this picture, but in the back corner, this is where all my sheet goods are. So I've got full sheets of plywood sitting in this back slot, and then partial sheets where already cutoffs in these vertical slots over here. I think Bob asked whenever he came in, said, well, how do you get to these back sheets? And then that's why this is mobile, right? So this is on wheels, so I just roll this right out, and then I can get to those big sheets. And it doesn't take up a lot of floor space that way. It works out real well for me. And then this is, again, more for, again, sheet goods that basically have been thinned down. So anything pretty much that's long and less than 12 inches will go on these racks over here. This is some cabinets that I built for the corner. The interesting story behind this is whenever I built my workshop, we had been living in the house that we were in for a while, it was kind of run down, and my wife had been wanting me to basically redo the kitchen, completely redo the kitchen. The cabinets that we had in there were original, not very good. But the first thing I had to do was I had to build my shop. I couldn't fix up the house because I had a shop. So I built the shop, and then I built these cabinets were the first things that went into the shop. And so she used to love to complain to me whenever I go out in the shop. She said, you know, the cabinets in your shop are twice as nice as the cabinets in our house. So you got to do something about that. So then I did give her brand new cabinets in the kitchen. This is the storage units for all the little knickknacks and screws and whatnot. Because I do a lot of on-site work, I do a lot of cabinet work, and I end up taking a lot of things on-site. Pretty much everything is mobile. So these racks up here with all the different types of screws, basically just take them right off the wall and just take them with me. Got rack pieces of things in here for plumbing, electrical, and an assortment of other woodworking things. I got sandpaper slots and all sorts of things. But basically, it's all located in an area that I can get to, but it's also mobile. I can just take it with me if I need to. I think Bob liked this one because this one shows off my collection of tapes. I don't know about you, but it's the same thing. With me, it's every time I go look for a tape, I can't find one. Where is it? It's gone. And so then you buy another one, and then you find the one that you lost, and then back and forth, back and forth. So I've collected a number of tapes, and actually I've given a lot of tapes away because I've had so many. But I finally came up with basically just a little storage area that whenever I clean up the shop, all the tapes get back into their right spot. And then some other cabinets that I basically, some upper level cabinets that I have on here. I actually like these a lot because on the inside I've got a lot of different power tools that I use. And then on the outside, all the pegs and everything else, a lot of the quick access things that you need. I was amazed by my wife that after a big project when the shop was just a mess and got things everywhere, within 10-15 minutes, I can get everything right back and the area cleaned up because there's a place for everything. There's a specific place for every tool in the shop.
Is that a steamer box there?
That's a steamer box, yep. I think the next picture actually shows that. So I just got that, so I just started doing some steam bending, so I just built that steamer box a couple weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to getting into some more some bending work.
Looks like Jerry's got questions going there.
Oh, no, right.
No?
This is my sliding compound miter saw station. I think there might be another picture that's a follow-up to this. I've got this, basically just built this whole large station. Actually, back it up one more. This is 6 feet on either side of the saw. And, you know, I've got drawers for storage and everything else over here on this one side. We've got the big tabletop, of course, the big fence, along with a little stop block. We've got tape up over here. And it really allows me great reliability and repetitive cuts with the sliding compound miter. Because the sliding compound miter is actually stuck in there. It's actually screwed down to the table, so it doesn't move. It works out really, really well for me. So I can do all my ripping and everything else on the big table saw, and then my cutoffs with the sliding compound miter. There's another view of it over here. I actually never finished it. I was going to actually put cabinet doors down in here and a drawer in here. It's just one of those things that somehow the priority never got to get up and finish it.
What do you do about dust collection for that one?
You can't. I don't think we've got a picture of it. Take it back one picture. But I actually have slots drilled in here, and in the back there's a large hole with a little fence mesh covering over it. And that whole thing is actually connected into the dust collection. See, we've got a big pipe down here, and that goes out the side over to the dust collection. So that helps, but the miter saws are notorious for just dust everywhere. So it doesn't do as good of a job as I would like. I think the next time I do one, I want to do something with a shroud, something that will actually try to keep, because the dust wants to go up. And that's the big problem.
That's what I do, but if you want to change the angle, it kind of gets in the way.
Exactly, that's the big problem. As soon as you go to a miter, then all of a sudden, everything that you have set up for it.
Have you seen that, I think, brochure about a fellow who has an awning type thing that?
Yeah, but again, it's the same thing. As soon as you turn it 45 degrees, that awning.
I mean,
Oh, does
he's
it
got a
turn with
whole
it?
plastic box back there.
No, so you need to make it.
It's about
Oh,
3
yeah.
feet wide.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's a lot of room.
Shop Note just had one recently that I've just built, and it's got the hood like that, and you can tilt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. That's ideal. That's the way to go.
Mine's a slide saw, and you can tilt it either way, so.
That would be the best.
Yeah.
Mine's got a place in the back where the dust falls in,
Yeah,
but the saw still kicks scrap out in the front.
yeah,
No matter what you do.
yeah.
I think there's only one solution, is back the saw up to a wall, get a commercial 36-inch fan with a couple of horsepower on it,
Just
put
draw
a
it.
door on it.
Outside, yeah.
There you go. This is actually one of my drawers, but it's an open drawer. I designed 2 of these drawer units, and I have it open because this is where I do my immediate cutoffs. So this top drawer will be for current projects, something I'm actively working on. I know I'm going to use that species again, and so I'll just stick them in this drawer, and it goes pretty deep. I mean, it's a full 30 inches deep, so it's nice, quick, easy access, especially right there at the cutoff saw. This is I built this the height of this to be perfect for. Actually, I've got these big rolling trash cans that fit right underneath this tabletop and actually go into the back, and I've got an opening here, and I have another extra one over here, so I've got 2 of these big cans. So for actual cutoffs, the scraps that I don't use, as soon as I cut them, boom, they just go right into that can, and then whenever they fill up, I roll the can out, go dump it, put it back in.
I figure you roll it out and give it to George, so.
Yeah, I'll give it to George.
Him and Hans are waiting at the door.
This is actually one of the best productivity aids that I've created for this whole station, because the scraps have to go somewhere, and if you pile up someplace, they're in the way. They're just always a pain. So having those cans there like that really have a big payoff. And there's the corner unit, so I've got my dust collection system, and so I've got hoses that again go back into this station, and then over into the table saw and some other areas. There's my my joiner, again on a mobile station, so I just kind of keep it tucked up over here next to one of those cans, and whenever I need to, I just roll it out into where I need it and roll it back. And there's my big unisaw. I was so proud the day that I bought my unisaw because I finally got Norm's saw, right? You know, Norm Abrams, right? And so I watched him for years and years and years and just always lusted after his saw. So I finally ended up getting one, and I've really loved that saw ever since. This is the oldest thing in my shop. That table right there is at least 30 years old. It was one of those things that whenever I was in my garage, I had to have a bench, something to work with. And so I threw this together with full intention of getting rid of it as soon as I built something permanent. And I just never got rid of it. It was just always one of those things that just always hung around. So now I use it just for storing sheet goods and whatever else. It is the only thing in my shop that is not at a specific height. This is basically the part over here is connected to my table saw. Everything in the shop is built to that height. So I have a mobile workstation. I've got all of my countertops. Everything, the cutoff saw is all exactly that same height. That also has big payoffs in productivity as well. So that if you need something to be able to hold on to another larger piece of wood, everything is all at that same height. Really is good. This is my mobile workstation. I wouldn't call it a workbench per se. It doesn't have all the traditional vices and everything else in it. But I do a lot of work with power tools, and this is a mobile power station is really what I call it. I've got double electrical boxes on 4 corners of that thing, and it's actually all plugged into a power cord that basically you can just undo. So if you need to move it and plug it in somewhere else, you can do that. So the whole thing is mobile and really built for power stations.
What size is the top on that?
The top is, I think it's 30 by 72, 6 feet by just under 3.5 feet. Okay, this piece right here that Bob took a picture of, I do a lot of face frames because of the cabinet work that I do. So with face frames, you always end up wanting to have a perfect 90-degree area that you can do quick work with. And so I actually devised these things. Go ahead, I think the next picture shows. So I have these little side plywood edges that are on just a little turning clamps that will rise up about 3/4 of an inch. And so whenever I want to put two pieces together, I've got the long side and then the short side, and I'll just raise those up, clamp them down, and then I can just take two pieces of wood and put them right into that corner. I've got a perfect 90 degrees to work with. And whether it's face frame or anything else that I need that perfect 90 degrees, it's right there. And it's good and strong, and it'll hold whatever I need. That's just another shot of it with this side dropped down and this side is up. So you can put both of them up or one of them up, either way that you want it. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Okay, and next up is Kim Klein,
Oh, good, thanks.
and his is going to be a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe.
Okay. Before I get started, we all get to stand up for 3 minutes and get the wrinkles out. You can bang your banger when we have to sit down again.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but after about an hour, it starts to get wrinkles.
I fly a variety of planes. I used to own a 182, but right now I'm flying a German Tiger. And actually, I've just now working with a guy forming a new partnership. He's got a banana.
4 years ago, we got a brand new guy with the little lasers. Can we borrow lasers?
Yeah, it's easier. I should have done the same thing rather than using my hand.
What do I push? The center one.
Originally,
Black.
was charged
Yeah.
right. Failed business.
Yes.
There's an Episcopal priest that was several years ago downtown. One of the inner city churches. It sounds like we would be good entertainment working with. It sounds like geography is not going to work out.
Oh, yeah.
Where I live, there's nothing else. Might be one of
What I would suggest, we meet on
That's a great idea.
come up with this. I'd love to have you remember again the geography. I dropped out of the driving to Cobb County late afternoon traffic.
Word Rhymes Guild has a chapter.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, right, we should do
And it still gives you that color because of the back there.
Anyone, come up.
Oh my God. I love it. The hero of working for 30 years.
Hang on here. Well, I'm not gonna wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not gonna wait, Bob.
All right, yeah, let's.
All right, I do small case work. My name's Ken Klein. We're not gonna talk about tools in my shop. What we're gonna talk about is how my shop has evolved over the years, and why it's evolved the way it has. Some of you were probably here when I gave a little talk on old tools versus new tools. I'm going to show you a collection just for your own curiosity what one looks like. But it changed my approach to the kind of tools that I use, and I like hand tools. So in my shop I build, as I said, small cases. I hand cut my own dovetails, I do hand planing, I flatten boards, but I use power tools to get me up to a certain point. And like most of you guys, mine are on rollers so I can get them out of the way, with the exception of that little table saw. They're all well fettled or tuned up so they do what I want them to do. So with that in mind, this is the left-hand corner of my shop, and over to the left is the doorway that gets you out of my basement. The shortcoming in my shop is light. I have miserable fluorescent lights, and as I grow older, I find I need more and more light, which I don't have. So go to the next one. This is the other end of my shop. It's where I do all my work. Everything is on that side of the shop. What you're looking at is about half of the shop. The other half I live in with my computer. That's where my wife lets me put my bed. And so as you can see over there, there's a turn-of-the-century tool chest I had in progress, and a little table over in that right-hand corner. And as I said, my thrust has been hand tools. So give me the next picture.
You point with your fingers for
Oh,
not using it.
yeah, okay. One of the things I thought you might be interested in is my dust collection system. It's pretty standard, but that gadget right there,
Yeah.
how many of you have a separator attached to your, how many of you don't have Cyclone? Most of you. What I found with dust collecting was that while the Delta does a pretty good job, and I used to have piping all over the place, it really didn't have the power to give me enough vacuum to carry the particulate solids that I wanted to over long distances. So I started just hooking my power tools up. As you can see when I go to my, there's my hookup. And then about 6 months ago, I was attending a show down at Woodcraft, and one of the guys brought in this thing. It's called a thin, T-H-I-E-N separator. This is the greatest thing since peanut butter. You can buy a separator out here, and that's those two outlets that you see. But the thing that really makes it work is that baffle in the bottom. What it does is it puts all your heavy stuff down in the garbage can, which you've got two handles and you carry it out to your sawdust pile. And the thin stuff goes into your bag. And for somebody that really does a lot of thickness planing, joiner, and so forth, it'll take you probably about 3 or 4 months before you have to empty that dust bag. So that was one of the things I thought you might be interested in. There we are. Over behind that piece of cardboard, you can see what looks like a door panel and a fan. We're going to get to that thing in a second. Okay, you can give me the next one. I use an HVLP for spraying, and I don't have the pockets to buy a spray booth. And so I talked to a bunch of engineers, and I came up with this idea. That's a high-speed exhaust fan. When you turn it on, it really pulls a lot of cubic feet of air per minute out the door. And what I did was I made a full insert for my basement door, and I spray about 4 feet back from that. Now, I figured we would probably have some differences of opinion here, because yes, it does have brushes in it, and yes, if you built up a large enough volume of lacquer, I'm sure that you could blow yourself to hell. But I don't see myself ever building up enough to do that because of how fast it exhausts. Another thing, in your shop, you always collect dust. So what I do is I stick that thing in the door, get my pressure gun, and go, blow all the dust down towards that end, and it just goes out the door.
Are you putting a filter to cover that when you're spraying?
No, I don't, because I want the air to go out very, very quickly. And I'm not doing long, excessive spraying. As I said, I do small stuff.
It looks so good on the neighbors' cars too.
How'd you get a spectral car?
This is blowing out on the side of your shop.
Yes.
This is a door there. Where do you bring the air in?
Okay, that's a good question. I, several years ago, to take some of the more finer stuff out, I got one of these squirrel cage blowers, and I stuck that in a pretty good sized box with filters up on the ceiling, and that thing happens to blow right into that area. So I have a small house, but my basement's the same size as my house, and I can move a large volume of air from downstairs into the basement and out of the basement. Okay? As I said, all my tools are mobile. One of the things I really like is my sanding device over there, that Performax 1632. If you do inlay or, it's a fantastic tool. If you ever get one, it's like a microwave. You cannot live without it. This is my very extensive sharpening system. You know what? Did we miss my tool collection, Bob?
No, not yet.
It was right at the very first, third picture.
No, it's later on.
Okay, it's later on.
Yep.
I'm an advocate of scary, sharp, plane irons, chisels, and carving tools. I don't use too many carving tools, but the ones I do use are very, very sharp. I found that all I really need is, I use that 10,000 grit as final. You give me the next picture, I use a 1200 diamond stone, and now, after having seen a demo at this last tool show, I have a granite block that I bought here, and I put a 1200 or a 600 grit wet dry on top of that with 3M77 spray adhesive. That's all I need for all of my sharpening. And I thought that might be of interest to you guys.
Now, I'd editorialize at this point. Some of us have got, got it pretty bad here about collecting things and so forth. But I think this takes the cake on anything I've seen before.
Oh! Remember, I said that the thing that had influenced my my thinking and the tools that I buy currently today for use was my 20-year experience collecting tools and being around the old tools and the transition up through the modern tools today. This, on the left-hand side there, 2/3 of that was in my own personal collection. And down on the end where you see all the cabinets, about 2/3 in those cabinets was also my personal collection of tools, and they were Stanley. That was my forte. Let's go ahead and show them the other half of the collection.
That's only half of it.
Oh my God.
That's the other half.
Where was this, Tim?
This is in Franklin, North Carolina, and the balding guy over there is, I tell you, his name is Joe Taylor, and Joe owns 4 valleys up there, about 100 acres each. He just recently sold a little 27 acres for $3.5 million. Wears a cowboy shirt with pearl buttons and a John Deere hat, And when you go to lunch with him, he'll take you to a restaurant he's been eating at for years, and all of his good old boy wealthy guys that you don't think have a dime are in there eating. He's just the salt of the earth. He's a fantastic guy, and he obviously likes to collect tools. So I'm not going to get into those things. I just wanted to show you those so you could see in your mind how I'm going to get to some stuff I'm going to talk about shortly. First thing I built myself about 10 years ago was this cabinet. This is my tool chest. I have basically 3 tool chests in that right-hand corner. That's curly cherry. Okay? And inside that chest I had purchased, prior to getting into woodworking, a lot of antique tools because I wanted to find out how they worked. Were they really, by today's standards, good tools? And my personal opinion is the answer was, with the exception of saws, was no. They're nowhere near as good as a 21st century tool. I've since sold all that stuff, okay? And I've since sold all of that stuff. Those were from hand planes. The drawers under them, like that drawer right there, holds most of the tools that I use for stringing and inlay. The door up above it holds files. The one above that one holds marking and drafting stuff. This is my other tool chest. The interesting thing about this is all of those tools, when I get through using them on my bench, I can walk right over there and put them right back up. They're held by magnets. All those planes are held by magnets. I've since sold the Stanley 112. I'll mention that one just briefly. The Stanley 112 is a scraper plane, and you can take as much wood off of that if you put the correct hook and tune it to the board as you can almost with a scrub plane. It'll take off a tremendous amount of wood if you want it for that. The other thing I sold was the Stanley, equivalent of Stanley 95, and I purchased those 2 planes right there, which are a right and left hand skewed 95 basically. As I said, they're held on by magnets. Any questions? None. Okay. I call this better woodworking through my chemistry storage chest. And I built that about 6 years ago, and you can see some of the inlay, the butterflies with the spalted wood, and we all use or at least I do, transient dyes, blues, polishes, and so forth, and that's where they're at, all in the right-hand corner of my shop. Okay? I put my workbench in here for a reason. This one is patterned after Frank Klaus. How many of you know of him? Some of you. He's a noted woodworker, and his hook is he hand cuts a whole series of dovetails at one time. And he can cut more dovetails in 1 minute you can cut in 3 hours. That's what he's noted for. He's a very well-known woodworker. I have the traditional shoulder vise, the traditional tail vise, and the traditional bench dogs. For casework, it's fantastic. This little thing on top I thought you guys might be interested in. As you grow older, and if you're doing a lot of work where you're bent over like inlay, or you can't hand plane on that, but inlay in particular, this is patterned after a Steve Latta workbench. There's a vise on the other end. Go ahead. And this last picture of my shop shows me doing some inlay. There's 2 interesting things here. The first one is I raised up my work area 10 inches. The second thing is, you see that stupid light right there? I buy those at IKEA for 11 bucks a piece. And you say, okay, well, it's a gooseneck light, so what? The thing that makes it unusual is it has a very long and a very thin gooseneck. So that if you're up there and you're routing something, you can take that thing and literally go put a 90-degree crick and move it wherever you want to. It's very, very exceptional for that. I have them on, go ahead.
What hole is it on the bench?
In that case, I just made a hollow peg, super glued it in, and there's a peg on the bottom and a hole in the bench. Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Put a series of holes down through there. So the light is interesting. The surface is raised up 10 inches. That's interesting.
What's the
And
power
last
by?
but
The light, is that powered by battery or is that the?
no, it's a LED. And I have, like someone else in here, I have a couple of power outlets built into that. So I have my power exactly where I want it and need it.
Yeah, Larry, those lights have a wall wart power supply on it. It's got an inline switch in it. So just, maybe a foot or two away from the light itself is the switch.
Okay.
It's inline.
Just
cord
makes
inline.
life super easy.
$11, huh?
Sir?
$11.
I think they're, well, I bought mine for 11, but they may be $12 or $13 a Kia. And you have to go there. They don't sell them online. I showed those to a bunch of guys up the street, and Kia had a run on those things. Guys bought 4 or 5 of them at a time. I have them on my my router table. I have them on my bandsaw. I have them on my scroll saw. The one deficiency there is they vibrate just a little bit, so you get a flicker, but boy, you can put the light where you want it, and so forth. And last but not least is, no, go back. I'm not even going to show them that picture.
No.
I wanted to show you, that's a tapered leg, and that vise has a little device in it. I think Steve Latta, a very well-known federal furniture maker, came up with. And basically what it is, it's flat on one side, 2 wedges or angles on the other side, and a post, and it floats back and forth, so you can put a tapered piece in it. And gentlemen, that's the end of my story.
Okay, that brings us to Steve Carmichael.
I don't have that much stuff, so this won't take very long.
Oops, I went backwards.
Yeah.
Storage area.
Well, hang on here, somewhere or another, I got upside down and backwards here. There we go.
When I first started, like, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, I started buying little benchtop tools and things, $99 stuff. Well, last year I inherited all my dad's stuff, so he had like the next size up on everything. So over the last year I've been replacing what I have with his, a little bit bigger tools. But I'm on my wife's side of the garage over there. This is my workshop. And I just kind of took it over, and now she parks outside. So I got to thank her for that. That's me trying to run away from the picture. But I've got it set up. I do YouTube videos, so a lot of it is set up kind of like half TV studio and half workshop, but with all the lights and stuff. That's a router table I brought home from my dad's, and it looks like he never got around to mounting a router in it because the router plate hasn't been drilled for holes or anything. And he had 3 routers that I brought home, so I'm going to mount one of those in there and have one handheld and one extra router. That's a flip table I made. I did have a little Ryobi router table on the underside, and then I could just flip it over whenever I wanted to use that. But I'm gonna put the planer, it's a little bit wobbly for that heavy planer, so I'm gonna make a better stand for the planer, maybe use that for lighter tools. But, that's a little tiny table saw. It's a Sears 8-inch. Yeah, And the top is about as big as Bob's laptop up here. The motor that was on it didn't work, but I have a Dayton 3/4 horsepower motor that I'm gonna put on that and clean it up and get that working. And it looks like my dad made an attempt at making an insert plate there, but so I'm gonna have to do something different there. That's my dad's lathe. It's a KFF is the manufacturer. And he used it to turn 80 of those spindles for their front porch.
Wow.
And I think that's either a mess up or a leftover or an extra one that I brought home just to put on it. But I turned it on to make sure it works, and I've since bought a pin mandrel and some kits, so I'm gonna use that big lathe to do a little pin. Rob showed me how to do a pin, so I'm gonna use it for that. And I think it's the smaller Morse taper. Number 1 or 2, I'm not sure which one. And that's kind of down the side wall there.
Steve, what's behind the post on the lathe?
Behind that silk screen?
Oh, okay.
That's my t-shirt silk screen for my
That's one from the
logo t-shirts. Yeah, I print my own t-shirts.
Since State Farm equipment.
Huh?
Is there a big demand for t-shirts with your name on it?
Well, not yet.
All right.
I'm always planning ahead. I made myself too, so I can wear them while I'm doing my videos and stuff.
To show he fits in with the rest of us that don't, haven't figured out what we want to be when we grow up. This is his shop within a shop.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my side of the garage. I built a little 8x12 room so that me and my son could practice drums in there. So that's like the drum room in there.
Gotcha.
So I store all that stuff.
Soundproof?
Well, yeah, somewhat. That's the outside wall there, so you can hear sound through there. But
Hang your carpet over.
I did put a ceiling on top of it, so it's kind of like a little room within the garage. So that helps with the sound.
It's not real soundproof because first time
Yeah,
I knew
can you
he
hear
was in a
Rob?
band is I heard it from my house. The next street.
Yeah, Rob lives the next street down, so if he can hear it, then it's not very sound.
How you keep the dust out of it?
Oh, it's got a door. I put a door on it so I could lock it so all the neighborhood kids just can't come in there all the time.
Oh, I thought you beat it off.
Huh?
You beat it off with a 6.
Oh, yeah. But that's a drill storage charging station. You can see the little chargers that are hanging underneath it. That way I can put them up there and just stick the batteries in so they're charged the next time I need them. Those are all the clamps I have. I really don't clamp that much stuff, but I just kind of buy clamps as I need them. And that,
We do too.
Yeah.
that one on top,
Telling.
my brother-in-law got that from Georgia Power. They were getting rid of a bunch of stuff, but I just thought it was kind of neat, the giant seat clamp.
That's what I could use.
Yeah. That's a little dresser, a little cheap dresser that one of our kids had. And I took it and cut off the top drawer to lower it a little bit and put my grinder and some hand power tools in it. But that grinder, it's got a Georgia Tech, it says Georgia Tech on the front. It's like cast into the base of it. So my dad must have either stole it or bought it from Georgia Tech. So I thought that was kind of neat. Those are my wife and kids' beveled screwdrivers. But, yeah, someday when I get a real nice chisel set, I'll leave those out for decoys. So they can, that's my dad's tool chest that it was all rusty and grimy and had all kinds of plastics and rubber stuff stuck to it, and I cleaned it up and repainted it Van Halen style. I've been putting pegboard everywhere, so those are, just various tools and some license plates that I used to have on cars. But I use that for the backdrop of my videos, and a lot of those tools on that pegboard there were my father's and grandfather's, things that I don't really use, so that they'll always just be there on my video backdrop. But the other pegboards around the other walls have the things that I do use the squares and rulers and stuff.
I guess that's the cutout of your wife.
Yeah, well, I think focused in on that. But I needed a thin push stick to cut some small strips. So I figured I would make I made a video of that, and I actually posted that on the Lumberjack site, and it got like thousands of views, a ton of comments, and so.
Where do you hold it?
No comment. It does have a good grip though. But those are some little push sticks that my father made. So I don't use those, I just let them sit up there. That's a green and green style paddle. I was sitting at work one day and I got a Facebook message from one of the fans of the band that I play in, this girl, and she said, "Can you make me a paddle?" So I wrote her back, I said, "Do you mean a boat paddle or a butt paddle?" And she wrote me back, she said, "A butt paddle." So I was like, okay. So I didn't ask any more questions. So since then I've made her like 5 or 6 paddles, evidently she's starting a collection. But
That's the conclusion.
I don't know. I'm waiting on her to ask for leather stuff. But that's a little drill press, benchtop drill press.
Yeah, as I was there taking this picture, I realized after I was standing there in front of that thing that it is so universally scaled, or uniformly scaled, that you couldn't figure out how big it was until you put a standard sized claw hammer there on top of it. But that's a pretty small miniature drill press.
That's the Craftsman bandsaw / sander. It says I've never used it as a sander, but apparently you can get some kind of sanding belt to go around the wheels. I think it's the same as Marcus I saw in your picture.
What's the roller on the side? Looks like a roller down on the side.
Oh yeah, that's one of those, table saw roller things, roller stand to support long pieces when you're ripping them. That's the workbench my dad made. It's really made up of 2x4s that are laid flat and glued together with a 2x4 frame around it and a tool trough in the back. I do have a scroll saw. It's a Craftsman 13-inch, but it does what I need it to do. And Rob gave me that little project there to do, but my blades with the pins, it won't go through the holes, so I'm going to have to come over and use your scroll saw to finish that.
I'll give you.
It's another view of the workbench, and that's my dad's old Craftsman vise there that I brought home. Because I used to, when I was a kid, I used to clamp wood in that and cut it with a handsaw.
Yeah.
That's a guitar that I started. It's made from part of a maple tree that was in my childhood home. My dad had to cut down the trees, and we saved slices of it. So I need to finish that. It's a lumber rack I made. That cedar at the top there came from the wood miser guy at the woodworking show. That's a view down the wall that joins with the house.
That sander, those are really nice. You bet.
Yeah, I like that rigid sander. The only thing I don't like about it is the top. They like engrave their logo and a bunch of lines and stuff, so work pieces are always catching on that, and then it, sand's like a divot in my work, because I'm trying to always keep the piece moving, but when it catches it, it does something, so I have to be careful about that.
Plywood top on it.
Yeah, I was going to do like a clear plexiglass. It's another view of the lumber rack, and that's my air conditioner. My dad must have taken the attic fan and made a stand for it, so I thought that was kind of cool, so I brought that home. And that's it.
I forgot to make an announcement earlier that it's good to see that we have Charlie back with us there after some
Very good.
Thank you very much.